There's a real treat coming for New Zealanders, and it's coming at the end of January of 2018 and rolling through February. If you want to be part of it, have a look out for this in any local cafe. We're spreading them now at the moment. A beautiful New Zealand scene with a little saying, something deeper is calling you. It's the call of your heart. After 6 years of not being here, internationally renowned teachers Gangaji and Eli are back in New Zealand in 2018. And they join me now. It's a great honor to have you both joining me to talk about what is going to be discussed. Gangaji, this is one of my favorite books. I read, I reread it, Hidden Treasure. Let's begin with that fable that your teacher, Papaji, told you. What is the widow and her children looking for? Because it's a story that applies to most of our lives.
They seem to be in dire poverty. And of course, since it's a spiritual story, it's really speaking of the dire poverty of the spirit, of the life that's being lived. And they go through any number of scenes trying to get or escape this poverty. And then finally, someone comes to them who says, oh, if you just raise the floorboard on your kitchen floor, you will find a great fortune that your husband left you before he died. And they finally, after some yes, but, I don't know, it couldn't be, examined, actually opened the floorboard and looked inside, and there was the beautiful moral of this fable is that the treasure is already here within you. And really all that's required is to look. But for that, you have to recognize how you're avoiding looking.
Avoiding inquiry, Eli. Talk to us more about that. What are the ways that we become so adept at avoiding inquiry, or perhaps we could put it another way, avoiding ourselves?
Well, first, the great trap is believing you already know who you are. Almost everybody believes they already know who they are. They don't have to look. And most people on the street, you say, do you know who you are? And they say, of course I do. And so that's the first great trap, is believing you already know. And so most people live in a life of ignorance, of believing they know who they are, believing they know what they want, and then go out and try to find that. And compromises and deal and settling. And another great trap is if you believe that you don't know who you are. Because in believing you don't know who you then start searching other places for it. But if you can stop for a moment between and you let that space open up, then you discover what's unknown and unspoken and unthought. Because all of our ideas of who we are ideas, they're beliefs, they're patterns of conditioning. We believe we know who we are because we've been given a name. Your name, these are your parents, this is your past, this is what you should do, this is what you should want, this is what a good life is. So to wake up from that trance is the willingness to turn away from it. And most people are terrified of losing the trance because it's comfortable and they know themselves in that and stay secure and safe.
Let's make it quite personal here, Gangaji, because 10 years ago I was in Sydney. I was living there, and a friend said, oh, come and see this beautiful teacher. And I came to the hall, and I love to communicate, so I put my hand up. I'd done years of counseling. I came up with a really ready-made story that I had, I could explain my past. I was willing to share that in front of everybody, and I came up with absolute preconception that you would go, oh, that's a terrible story, and aren't you brave to have done it? And you don't need to remember what you said to me because you say it to many of us. You didn't play the game with me. You didn't go for my story. You didn't accept I was my story. Do you know what you would have said to me? Because it's what you offer to so many who come to you.
It's in as many different ways as possible. I am telling the story of the hidden treasure. And when I say poverty of spirit, of course, you didn't come up to me feeling or expressing poverty of spirit, but you came up suffering unnecessarily, simply because you hadn't looked deeper than what you were telling yourself about what had happened or what had. And I just invited you to stop telling that story, to take a moment as an experiment, not as a belief or a dogma, as an experimental moment of inquiring, questioning, well, who am I without this story?
It was so powerful, that moment. I left that hall crying in frustration because my mind couldn't cope. My mind couldn't cope, but something in your eyes, something in your presence had somehow spoken in my heart. And it wouldn't leave me from that day. I kept coming back to find you the next year and the next year, and it kept taking me deeper. Eli, is this what happens in the process? Tell us your own story, perhaps, because that helps people to access what you're talking about.
Well, it's so true. It's not in the words. Anybody can say the words. My teacher said a parrot can be taught the words of satsang. And so a parrot could speak it. It's not the words. When I met my teacher for the first time, I sat down with him, and it was done. He didn't teach me anything. He didn't tell me any stories. I just sat there with him, and my mind stopped, and my heart opened. That moment of my life, that was finally, after an 18-year search, I'm sitting with someone that is radiating without saying a word. And that's what stays alive in your heart, Liz, from meeting Gangaji, because that's Papaji's transmission through Gangaji to you.
I would love to add, when I met Papaji, he was also really willing and absolutely attentive to what was present, because you phrased it when you came up there. If you are drawn, or if you resonate with really questioning the truth of who you are, then you're already ripe, and that's your willingness. And so in that sense, as Eli, it doesn't even matter what's said. It's someone meeting your willingness and really confirming that you can discover the richness of the truth of who you are.
And Eli, you say it's in Gangaji's presence, but it's also in your own. I remember at the end of one beautiful 3 days I spent with you both, you said there is something that drops in the space when we all sit together, when we hear one another, when we feel one another. But it almost can't be defined by words, can it, Eli? It's hard to put any of this into words. We have to be there experientially.
Yes. And that's, it was Gangaji said, is the right. On the other hand, you have the start of Zen starts with a man who is an illiterate itinerant woodcutter who walks into an inn to deliver the wood. They're just doing their practice, like doing mass or doing anything else. They're chanting. And the words are enlightened, and he hears the words and wakes up. Not from the enlightened presence of the monks, but because he was so ripe. He was so ready in his own soul. So it's really a mystery, you know. And when that rightness meets readiness, then that's what this means.
Gangaji, can you tell us more about your rightness when you met your teacher, Papaji, whose lineage goes back to a beautiful Indian man, Ramana? You had come from, as many of us had, from a background where you'd been very good in a way at dissembling, at putting on the public face, at hiding the parts of ourselves that we don't want the world to see. And many of us become adept at that. I used to be good at it too, because I didn't want to look at it within me. So tell us your story, if you can, that took you to meet your teacher.
Well, I had been looking for happiness since I was a young person. And I had discovered ways that pleased other people, as you're referring to, which did give me much more pleasure than not pleasing other people. But it was hollow, and it wasn't a deep joy, it was a pleasure. And so I was aware at an early age that I was unhappy underneath my happy facade. And I tried many different things, and I benefited from many different things, practices, really trying to get at what is this bed of suffering underneath this pretty beautiful life. It's relatively good, affluent life, privileged Western life. And I recognized, and we really at the same time recognized independently and together, that I needed a teacher, that I had gone as far as I could. There was something I was missing. And I had checked out any number of things, including teachers, and had benefited from all of that. I don't want to denigrate that in any way, but I was missing something. And I prayed for a teacher, and somehow I wasn't praying for a guru at all. The opposite. I was hoping maybe for a goddess to descend or some spot in nature to finally clinch the deal. Because I had moments, as I'm sure we all have, moments of perfection. But somehow that would disappear and my suffering would appear. So when I met Papa, she was really ready to at least hear what he had to say. And as you were saying, I met him and I saw something that I knew I had to attend to. So I paid really close attention. And he didn't play the role of teacher. He was welcoming. He said, come in, come in. And when I said, tell me, Papaji, what can I do? Anything. I then tried to stop, like I had learned to imitate any other thing that any teacher had told me. And he could see right through that. And he said, really stop. And when I heard that, it was profoundly frightened. Regret back to some state of obvious suffering where I wouldn't even get pleasure in life. I was afraid of stopping, but I knew that it was time to at least investigate that. And that's all he said. He said, investigate for yourself. Find out for yourself. And in the context of his presence and visit with him, which had exploded in Eli's bliss and joy and self-recognition. And then Eli came, and when I saw him when he first got back, it was, oh, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. So it was all so dynamic and compelling that I just feel like it was great luck. Even if we don't know we're ready, but we're caught by something. We're pulled by something. Then it's here, because it is here.
And that story, Eli, is also a story of great freedom. Neither of you was instructed by Papaji. Neither of you was given a list of things to do. This was an ongoing discovery, wasn't it? It's not easy. It's not a straightforward process. It goes forward and backwards like the waves in a way. Would you agree with that, Eli?
You can't practice to be yourself. You know, one of my friends said, you know, it's like having a violin concert and everyone's watching and learning how to play the violin. So there are no rehearsals. You have to be authentic. And the only way you can be authentic is by busting yourself on your own fake. When you get tested along the way, there are certain life choices where you have a moment of, are you going to sell yourself out and stay safe, or sell yourself out for the sex or the money or whatever it is, or are you going to do what's in your heart to stay true? And to the degree that you stay true, something deeper and more powerful opens up. There are always bigger challenges and bigger tests and vaster openings and deeper realizations. It's not like you wake up and it's over. You wake up and it starts. Life begins.
That is unnerving, because as little children we're put in school and we're told these are the rules. You obey the rules, you get these rewards, you get this prize at the end of the year. And then you come to this church and these are the rules, and you get these ticks, or you get into your adult working life and you do well in the corporate world, you get these rewards. What you're saying, both of you, is the opposite. We don't offer anything. We offer a space where you may find something. It's so sacred to offer that to human beings. It's the ultimate in treating humans like adults, really, isn't it?
Yes.
It's about growing up. It really is about growing up. Most of the world are big babies.
If we are big babies, that feels safe because we have ready-made rules and we know what to do. And then we can have, as Gangaji you put so beautifully, we can have a certain amount of calm or happiness in pleasing others. But the deeper happiness eludes us.
When there is a longing, then the life is never satisfied with just transient pleasures. Everybody likes pleasure. That's why it's called pleasure. But there's a deep dissatisfaction for something, or a longing and yearning for something that doesn't come and go, that's not conditional. That doesn't mean you have to be a good girl or a sweet girl or a bad girl or a smart girl, whatever it may be. It means you just stop and discover who you are deeper than any story of identification or any conditioning, because conditioning has its place, obviously. It's socialization, helps us function as human beings.
And really what it comes down to, it's like a cartoon we used to watch as kids, where you're following all the rules and you're doing it all right, and it's like the cartoon of the character who runs out over the cliff and keeps running until you look down and realize there's nothing underneath you.
Yes.
That's all we're here to do, is to say, look, there's nothing underneath here.
I remember, Eli, in one session, your words often stay with me, both of you, but you said a profound thing to all of us. You said perhaps the ultimate terror, and Gangaji used the word terror earlier, the ultimate terror is, for all of us, a terror that we will one day die. And so we build these castles to make ourselves feel that we're pushing death away. If I can be hugely successful in the corporate world, if I can have 10 cars, not one car, and 5 houses, and everybody loving me, then I won't die. But I left that seminar with you and went, oh, how freeing that thought is. I'm going to die. And I don't have to worry about it anymore. That was such a gift, that alone. But this is part of what we're doing. We're running from monsters that are not real behind us.
Yes.
That's right.
Why do you think death is such a terror to so many humans? Eli?
Well, nobody wants to die. Everyone wants to live forever. When you're really willing to face it and say, okay, this moment is a good day to die. This moment's a good day to die, you're absolutely free. You can be yourself 100%. You can go for it, whatever it is, 100%, because you know it's a good day to die. If it's not a good day to die, you can't keep yourself fully to this moment because you're already invested in the next moment.
So Gangaji, it's really this play between fearlessness and fear, or let's call it love and fear. Which one will dominate? Is that the play of humanity?
Animals are hardwired to want to survive. And as animals, because we as human beings are clearly animals, all life form, fear is not the enemy. That's just a part of the wiring, the fear of death. It's in there and it's a thing. It gets us to step out of the way of real danger. But what most people do over time is they incorporate that fear as to the death of my image of myself, death of what I think I should be or who I should be. And so it's a false death and it's a false threat. And that fear is just a psychological unnecessary suffering. So when Eli invites people to, it's not that you want to die, but that you recognize it's out of your control and that in this moment you can open to it regardless of fear. It's not that the fear has to go away because, the hairs on your body can be standing. And many people have this in moments of real threat, in accidents or in war or in falling in love, because that's a real threat to who you are. And everything stops and there's utter clarity. So that clarity is not in opposite to fear. It's underneath fear. In fact, fear can be a vehicle for finding it. And that clarity is love, the way I think of love. And I don't see love as in battle with fear. I see fear coming from love. We only have fear because we are afraid we will lose something we love. And what we love is our life, even if we don't like it all the time. We love it, and we don't want to lose it, so we fear. And in the willing to meet that fear, you can find the love. They're not separate.
There's such richness we could talk about. I do want to finish, though, with a reference to the Enneagram. Eli, I'll come to you in a moment because you teach this. But Gangaji, I'm intrigued to know how the Enneagram that Eli teaches has informed and enriched your work with us. How have you found this Enneagram has helped?
Oh, so much. Luckily, before we went to see Papaji, I had studied the Enneagram and been a part of Eli's courses with the Enneagram.
It's a wonderful way to know the self, isn't it, Eli? It's a way into the self.
It's a way of discovering the difference between ego and true essence. It's a way of discovering the difference between who you think you are and who you truly are. And when you know that distinction, then you can start to have clarity. And you can start to see each other. See, once we got the Enneagram, it saved our relationship because we could see, I could bust myself on my fixation, I had to see her fixation, and Gangaji had to bust herself on her fixation. And once she did, she became my teacher at that point. Because it wasn't my fixation against her, she was clearer and clearer and became a teacher. That was our change.
It stops the game playing. I could talk to you for days, and I will be, luckily, at the end of January and through those first weeks of February in New Zealand. And I would just say to anybody who's watching this conversation with us to join in this korero, as the Māori word is, the discussion, when you come. Thank you so much for the talk. Thank you for coming to New Zealand in 2018, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, look forward to seeing you.
Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this korero, this discussion, this wonderful way to welcome New Zealanders in. As the brochure says, something deeper is calling you. It is the call of your heart.